going to grab one of these bad boys. And seriously. See, this one didn't break. Come on. Oh my gosh. It's right. It's not me. That's like every time I grab it, right? Oh my goodness. Anyways, hi everybody. So I had this whole thought process planned out of where I want to go. You can't even make any of this stuff up. Thank you. Justin, something happened to your microphone or your music stand. I don't even know what that is. I don't even. This is nope. He's not even in the room. I got it, bro. Don't even worry about it. I got it. I'm good. You totally awesome, bro. You made it happen. You ever had one of those days? Just everything. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I had never. No. All this is going to mix into the message. I guarantee it. So the message I actually really wanted to speak on last week, I got sidetracked by just putting together a chronological order of just the Gospels and basically just walking through what does that really look like. So a lot of you guys were asking, hey, since you have that, can we have that? I'm going to be able to give that to you guys, but I'm not going to print it out and give it to you because it's 10 pages long. Okay, so what I'd rather do is if you would like a copy of the chronological order that I have kind of come up with, and I'll preface it, there's like an asterisk next to it. It might not be super like dead on because there's some things we just don't know about. So some of the verses and things you have to kind of just assume, but there's no concrete evidence. But then there's a lot of places you're golden. So if you guys would like that and you guys would want to you're like, man, I really like studying that stuff. I'd really like to see that. You can talk to me afterwards. I'm going to have a piece of paper where I'm going to be taking down your email address and then I will send that to you. Sound good? So if you're like, you said, and there's too much paper and there's too many of you. So I'd rather you waste your paper than, never mind. So with that said, that's where we're at. And I just want to kind of follow up with what we talked about last week, and then we'll dive right into what I really want to share this morning. Sound good? Amen. Last week we looked at this. Booyah! Or not. There it is. Yes. We looked at one point in Luke where basically Jesus looks at the disciples and he says, it's time. He says, it's time. And what he does is he starts to leave from Galilee up there at the top, and he starts to head down towards Jerusalem down there at the bottom. Now, I know that that's really small, so you don't have to focus on it. Just know this. From up in Galilee, Capernaum, down to Jerusalem is about 106 miles. But that's a straight shot. Obviously, you can see the zigzags. There was not a straight shot for Jesus. So we don't know exactly how many months it took, but we do know this. He enters into Jerusalem around the time, not of Passover. The first time he enters into Jerusalem, he enters in around the Feast of Tabernacles. Sorry, brain fart. All right, so that's where he enters in. He starts, and I used the term last week, he starts poking the bear, right? There's a reason he starts poking the bear, and I'm going to explain that today. He starts basically challenging the Pharisees. The Pharisees and Sadducees start challenging him back. They start asking a bunch of these questions. Majority of your gospel is written between him leaving Galilee and him ending up back into Jericho for the second time. Today we're going to talk about entering into Jericho. Now, I want to preface this next week, not just because I think it's a really neat message. If you want to understand the cross, like totally get the understanding of why Jesus had to be nailed to a cross, I'm going to ask that you guys show up next week. There's a talk that I give every 2.5, sometimes 3 years. We slaughter a goat on stage, and we did it when we first started the church, and it's time to bring it back this year. So we're going to be explaining the whole tradition and the reason why Jesus had to go to the cross. Why the blood? Why does all this happen? And then I'm going to show you that what they did for centuries before Christ even came, Christ actually did. They did the exact same ceremony without even recognizing it. And it's absolutely amazing. So anyways, that's next week. So he enters in, he's going to do that. So here's the last thing I want to show you. These are a couple maps. We'll zoom it in. Basically, after he leaves Jericho, he goes back to Bethany, raises Lazarus from the dead. Yeah? This is all precept, so I'm going real fast through it, okay? Sounds up? Yeah, yeah? Huh? Some of you guys are like, what's happening? Get last week's message. It'll explain everything. All right. So he goes up to Ephraim, does a couple things, goes over to Bethany, beyond the Jordan, okay? Goes into Jericho, goes back to Bethany, goes back into Jerusalem. When he enters Jerusalem, that's next Sunday. It's Palm Sunday. Does that make sense? All this takes place in a matter of 2.5 weeks. Sound good? Now we get to the point where I want to talk about today, where you're going to end up today is right here. Boom! Right outside Jericho. Okay? On his way to where? To Bethany, but go ultimately into Jerusalem. Everybody okay with this? Now you guys, I wanted to get you a mental picture, okay? He's walking. He knows he's walking to his death. Do you think there's a little agitation there? Do you know the next thing is? Have you guys ever been like super like nervous or scared about something? And then all of a sudden, people just kind of start talking to you about stupid stuff? And you just want to slap them. And you're just like, you know, I just can't handle this today, right? I want you to know, as Jesus goes from Ephraim and he goes all the way to Bethany, back into Jerusalem, he's already having a hard time. He knows that he's going to the cross to die. Now, some people are sitting here like, you guys will probably think like, oh, Jesus knew. He was like, oh, yeah, I got this. No. I know that he's worried. I know that he's scared. How do we know that? Because look at the Garden of Gethsemane. As the time has arrived, he starts sweating blood. Because he's so, I don't want to use the word scared, but he knows what's about to happen to him. There is a stress that is on his body like he has never had before. Are you guys all walking with me in this? So I know that he's nervous. And then all of a sudden, as he's getting closer to Jerusalem, the last week of his life, and he knows it's the last week of his life, he starts having his disciples start saying stuff like, hey, yo, Jesus. So, you know me and my bro? Can we sit at your right hand when you die? Bro, I'm not even dead yet. What the heck? Yeah, but we know like one day you're going to, so you know what? Let me get my mom. My mom will ask you. No joke, mom comes in, and mom starts asking the question, hey, you know my sons? Jesus is kind of like this. I just don't have time to deal with this right now. And then he turns to his disciples and he says, y'all know I'm going to die, right? You guys all know that this is why the Son of David has come. Right? And what do you think they all say? Oh, yeah, totally, Jesus. We totally get that. But do they get that? No, they have no clue about what's about to go down. Does that make sense? So now Jesus is kind of ignoring the disciples because what do you do when people are on your nerves? What do you do, right? You guys, I'm trying to give you guys the understanding Jesus was human. We think that he's like so godly and so upright, like, you know, like he just didn't, like, it says it's custom for him to go out every morning away from everybody and meet with the Father. What does that mean? Get away from me, all of you. I just need a break. Does that make sense? He created an entire day for us not to have to work so that we can rest and kind of be away from everybody. It's called the Sabbath. See, you know it, but you don't live it. It's the truth, right? We need to have a Sabbath, and we don't. And then we get all mad, like, I don't understand why I'm so tired all the time. God's like, go ahead, use that to God. And he's up in heaven, just, how long must I have? No, no. But are you guys with me on this one? And now they enter in, or they go through Jericho. The crowds are getting big. People know that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. The crowds are enormous now, right? And the disciples are still playing bodyguard, trying to protect Jesus and all this kind of stuff, and it's just going haywire. Are you all with me? I want to set the scene in your brain. Is that cool? Can you guys all see the scene? Okay? Then all of a sudden, enter in these verses, okay? You're going to have 3 of them. These are found in the gospel. They're found in Matthew chapter 20, 29 through 34, Mark 10, 46 through 52, Luke 18, 35 through 43. Same story, different gospels. Notice which one is not up there? John, because John doesn't record this because John doesn't care about this. Because John records basically the last week of Jesus, which is him going into Jerusalem. Everybody understand? There are some things prior to that, but most of his stuff is written when Jesus kind of goes into Jerusalem. Everybody with me? And these are the stories that we're going to read. We're going to take it from Mark because it's just it has more information for you. Sound good? All right, here we go. Ready? This is what it says. Mark chapter 10 says, and they came to Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a great crowd. Okay, I'll read it one more time. And they came to Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a great crowd, Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside. Did anybody else just catch what I just read? Okay, let's try it. Go to the next slide. And they came to Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho. When you read the scriptures, slow down a little bit. Because there are things that just don't make sense. And this is one of them. All right? Now, I can come up to you and tell you I have a huge theological, amazing reason why it's written this way. There is none. The reality is, they're sharing with you, they came into Jericho, but at this point, they are now leaving Jericho. And to be honest with you guys, you know the situation that they're just leaving? It's the story of Zacchaeus. If you know Zacchaeus, the wee little man that climbed a sycamore tree to see Jesus, if you don't know that, it's literally like the verses right before this, okay? He climbs a tree. He says, I'm going to go eat at your house. And you guys think that when you read that, you think that he spends a whole day there. He doesn't. He just spends a few hours at Zacchaeus' house. And they feed him. They have fun. They talk. And then they start leaving because they're going down to Bethany. Because you know what's going to happen on this night as he leaves? Literally, same day, they meet Zacchaeus. You're going to hear Bartimaeus, and when he enters into Bethany that night, there's going to be a woman named Mary that's going to anoint his feet with her hair with a huge jar of perfume. All happens the same day. Are you guys with me on this one? Now you think, oh, these are like weeks apart. No, this is all compacted into one thought, okay? And they came to Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples, a great crowd. All that to say, is he leaving or go? Is he coming or going? He's going. Everybody with me? He's leaving. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll read it the right way. All right, so, and he was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a great crowd. Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Next slide. And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood still and said, call him. And they called the blind man, saying to him, take heart, get up, he is calling you. And throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. And Jesus said to him, what do you want me to do for you? And the blind man said to him, Rabbi, let me recover my sight. And Jesus said to him, go your way. Your faith has made you well. And immediately he recovered his sight and followed him on the way. You guys all with me on this one? How many of you guys have heard this story before? Now, there's a contradictory, just in case you cared, and some of you guys are like, there's no contradictories in the Bible. Yes, there are. When you say there's no contradictories in the Bible, what that means is that we're not changing the concept or the premise of the story, but there might be little things here and there. In this story, 2 of the places record that this was happening as they were leaving Jericho. One of them records as they were going into Jericho. Did that make sense? Now, which one's right? 2 is better than 1, so you just go with the 2, right? No, not true. Okay? The reason why we know it's when they're leaving Jericho is because the other two Gospels record that there were blind men on the way into Jericho as well. Did that make sense? So, when you put all three of the stories together and you start to see them, we know this. Bartimaeus happened as they were leaving Jericho. Okay? Other blind men happened before Jericho. Everybody with me on this one? Another thing. Two of the stories record that there was one man named Bartimaeus. Other stories record that there were two blind men. Are you all with me on this one? Now, so what do we know for facts? You know, there were blind men before and after Jericho, and Jesus healed them all, okay? That's what we needed. That's the premise of the story. Jesus is healing people. Now, when it happened before or after, that's here nor there, because it's not going to change, basically, the theology. It's not going to change who Jesus is in any way, shape, or form. Does that make sense? What it's really going to do is just say, Jesus is healing a bunch of people. Okay? But in this story, it's recorded twice. We have not only the name of the man, but we have the name of his dad. There's something going on in this story. Now, here's the thing I want us to get to, and this is where we're going to sit for a while. You guys ready? Because this is why I believe that we need to go over this story. Not because it's a really neat story, but there's a lot of stuff to unpack, and I want to unpack it in the best way I can. First thought process when I read this story is this. Ready? Your environment is the key to your success. Amen. You need to understand your environment is the key to your success. Did that make sense? Now, watch this. If you go back to the verses, it says, and Jesus drew near to Jericho. A blind man was sitting by the side of the road begging, and hearing a crowd. Now, if you guys don't know anything about the way that beggars work back in the day, the way that beggars would work is they would have one spot to go to, and it would be a strategic spot. It would be the right environment. Does that make sense? Everybody with me on this one? Okay? And as he was sitting there, okay, this is not just a paraplegic or anything like that. This is a blind person. When you're blind, life changes drastically, right? You have to know how many steps it takes to get to the spot that you're going to. You need to know the exact spot that you're going to sit in. You need to know that you're in the right spot. Because if environment is the key to success and you're blind, how do you know you're in the right environment? I'm not talking about blind men anymore. So you're blind and you're going and you need to get to the right environment. How in the world do you know that you're there? You have to sometimes rely on other people. Does this make sense? The reason why I think we know his dad's name is because I believe that the family helped him out every once in a while to get him to where he was going. Does this make sense? That would be the only reason why we would know his dad's name. Otherwise, the story gets told over and over again afterwards, and maybe we know the father afterwards, but I'm assuming that the family never left him, but would take him every day and set him right in the place that he needed to be. Family is sometimes a big key to your success as well. And family can be in the form, not just blood, but friends, those that you keep close to you. Did that make sense? So this is key to this. And what happens? Okay? And hearing a crowd going by, back one. There it is. And hearing a crowd going by, he inquired what this meant. He inquired what this meant. Being blind doesn't mean that he's stupid. Does this make sense? Being blind does not mean that he's stupid. Being blind just means that he's missing something. See, what you lack is you gain in something else that you have. See, how to put this. God doesn't ever want to use what you don't have. He wants to use what you do have. But us, we keep trying to strive for something we don't have, because if we had the thing we don't have, then we would be successful. Are you guys with me on this one? See, God doesn't use bread and fish that he doesn't have. He took what he had and he multiplied it. So he didn't see the crowd forming. He what? Heard the crowd, because he still has his ears. And then when he hears the crowd, he doesn't just go, oh, there's a crowd. No, he goes like this. Oh, this is not normal. Something's not right here. So I'm going to use something else that God has given me, and I'm going to start talking. He what? Inquired. Means he used his voice. He said, hey, what's happening? What's going on? Somebody talk to me. is Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth is coming through. And then the game changes because the environment just changed. Now, I'm going to say a couple things, but I want you to understand the environment thing. Let's go to the next slide real quick. It says environment is the key. Homeless, day workers, McDonald's, seats. Homeless people never hide in the shadows. That would be stupid and not strategic. If they need money, where are they going? Right outside a restaurant or a shopping, like a store. Why? Because they know that you're going in. They know that they're going to be seen. And let's just be real. Most strategic, like homeless people that I know, okay, because I know a few of them, okay? They go to those places where you're coming right outside of a restaurant and you have your belly full. Does that make sense? And you walk outside and you just see this person sitting there and they're just like, hey, so. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Environment becomes the key for them. Day workers. I'm using this as the example because, yeah, if I'm a day worker, where am I going to go? People that need to work, right? So where do I go? And this is the cliche thing, but let's just be real. Home Depot, you see them all over the place. Why? Because they know if you're going to get materials for something, that maybe they can get a job with you. Environment becomes the key. By the way, just so you know, that is actually not a societal thing here in the United States. That actually happens basically throughout time. They had day workers that would meet in the squares, and there would be people that would come that needed help working in their fields, even through the scriptures. And they would go and they would grab these guys. Or these guys would actually stand outside of the fields looking in, hoping that the guy needs another worker. Environment becomes the key. McDonald's. Why do you think you see one on every corner? Cheap and strategic. There's a lot of people. I'm putting one right here. Starbucks, I would have used them, but they got overzealous and they started putting one on every corner. And when they start fighting each other, that's never going to work, okay? But McDonald's is smart. They're like, man, there's this many people in this city. I'm going to put one here, here, and here. And they're always on a main street. Always. They're strategically located. So when you're driving by and you're like, man, I really don't like McDonald's. It's so not healthy for me. Man, I wonder what I'm getting from McDonald's right now. You laugh because you know. It's the truth. Last, seeds. If I took a packet of seeds and I ripped them open right here and I just sprinkled them right here on the carpet and I'm like, all right, grow. You would look at me and say, Craig, you are stupid. And you know that they won't grow. Why? Why won't they grow? Because they're not in the right environment. Well, if you know that, then I want you to look at your life. Why do you think maybe you're not growing? Why do you think maybe you're not producing? Why do you think maybe you go to sleep every night asking God, why can't this happen in my life? Maybe God's looking at you saying, you're in the wrong environment. Are you with me on this one? Yeah. And it's about the environment. If that's the key, that's what needs to happen. Everybody still with me? Everybody walking? Is this interesting at all? So sum it up like this. Boom. They strategically place themselves in an environment that will help them produce what they are striving for. I don't know what you are striving for, but in order to accomplish what you are striving for, you need to be in the right environment. Does that make sense? You can't sit there and be like, I want to be a rocket scientist, but I have no desire to go to school. It will not work. There are things in our lives that we just look at and we're like, yeah, Craig, that's a duh. But then when we look at our spiritual lives, for some reason, all the logic goes out the window. We just assume that we can sit down and it will magically happen. That's not how it works. Last thing is this. This is my next thought process. Opportunity is always built off of accessibility. If you're not accessible, you will lose the opportunity. I'm going to say it slow, and I want you to walk it through, okay? Opportunity is always built off of accessibility. If you're not accessible, you will lose the opportunity. See, we are such... As Christians, I'm putting us all in a pot, okay? We think that because God gives us these second chances, that we believe that we can just go screw up our lives and then expect the same opportunities that God was going to give us years ago to happen now. Some of you are sitting here going, well, that's not right. No! You missed the opportunity. Well, that sucks. Yes! And God's up in heaven doing the same thing, scratching his head going, what the heck? You are so far behind and you're not producing what you need to produce because you are missing the opportunity. Because listen, I can't access you. I can't give you the thing that you need the most because you want me away from you. If I'm not accessible, then how in the world can I expect God to meet with me? But Craig, God can move everything and do that. But he doesn't, listen, he wants to partner with you. He doesn't want to control you. There's a difference. And in this moment, we have to start recognizing if we're not in the right environment, we're not accessible and we're going to miss our opportunity. Bartimaeus. Go back to him. I want to show this. Bartimaeus heard that there was Jesus. Bartimaeus heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, and he began to cry out and say, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood still. Did you know this is the only place in the Bible where it says that Jesus stood still? What could you yell to God that would actually make him stop in his tracks and focus on you? Can I be honest? That should be your thought process every morning you wake up. What can I do today to make God stand still in his tracks and say, something's happening with Craig, or you put your name there. Does this make sense? He stood still. What were the crowd saying? There's a blind man right here. No, they were saying, shut up. He doesn't like you. Aren't these the things that we hear? Is this not it? Here's what happens in our life. Are you guys ready for this? He's a blind man. Bartimaeus goes to the same spot every time. And he sits down, has his cup, shakes his cup, does his thing. Okay? Are you guys all with me? Has a little mat, shakes his cup, you know. Alms, alms, alms. Alms means basically giving to the poor. You guys got this, right? So if some of you guys give to the poor and you think that's a tithe, it's an alms. It's a whole different situation, okay? Now, he's doing his little alms thing. He hears the crowd. And then what happens? Okay? It's the familiar thing. He goes and he does it. He could have stayed there the entire time. Because watch what happens. Here's the thought process that I had. And it says this. We survive by doing the familiar. But familiar is what usually keeps us out of access. So we need to put ourselves in the right environment so God has the ability to access us. How do we survive? I do the exact same thing day in and day out. That's how I survive. I get up. I eat breakfast. I get in my car, I go to work, I come home, and it's repetitive. It's familiar. You know what the problem is? When things become familiar, and God's not part of the familiarity, that's it.
There you go, Jim.
Thanks. When he's not part of it, we lose access to him. Did that make sense? Imagine Bartimaeus sitting on the mat. Alms, alms. Here's a giant crowd coming. Alms, alms. And he never asks, what's going on? Where's Jesus going? I want you to get the thought process. This is why I showed you the map. He's leaving Jericho, going to Bethany, entering into Jerusalem for the last time. Is he ever going to go back to Jericho? This is Bartimaeus' last opportunity. And if he stays in the familiar, he'll be blind for the rest of his life. Are you with me on this one? So he has to do something outside of the familiar. Are you with me on this? He Here's another thought process I had. It says this: we create systems around the things in our life that don't work the way we believe they should. These systems shape our ideals, theology, and physical needs. What happens? Bartimaeus sitting there, alms, sitting on the map, alms. What has he done? He's created a system. I am going to be blind for the rest of my life. There is no chance of me getting out of anything. Are you guys with me on this one? This is who I am. Can I be honest with you? Some of you are in that spot. We've all created systems. Things didn't work the way we thought they would work, so what do? We go around it and we create the systems that make it work. Here's another thought process to do this. It says this: these systems we accept as truth, and they become part of our character and our way of life. If anyone challenges our systems, we do everything in our power to justify the system and try to get others to accept our way of life. Think about it for a second. Let it sink in, and just think of government. Think about every protest that we've ever seen in the last couple, year. We've created systems that create our character, our ideology, our character, and even our physical needs. And what do? That becomes part of us now. Are you with me on this one? Bartimaeus is blind, sitting on a thing, alms, alms. He's created a system. Things become familiar now. And all of a sudden, it's okay for him to say things like this. Next slide, it says, what does this all mean? It says this: I'm angry. Anger is my normal because, do you think Bartimaeus has the right to be angry? He's blind. That's not fair. How is that fair? I'm depressed. Depression is my new normal, or is my normal. Why? Haven't you seen my life, my past? Don't you know where I come from? Is this making sense? How we've created systems in our lives because things didn't go the way that we thought that they would go. So we try to create a new normal, and then we create a normal, and then I try to get you to accept my normal. And guess what we do? We have compassion and empathy. And we accept their normal. You know angry people. Let's just be real. You know angry people. And what do you say? Oh, that's just so-and-so. Yeah, watch out. They bite. Like, you know what I mean? And we make little jokes and we do these things. But the reality is they shouldn't be that way. Because that's not the way that God created them to be. That's not who they are. Depression should not be a normal. Hatred should not be a normal. Giving up, not trying, these should not be normal. Darkness is not normal. Now, I just get excited about this stuff. So then what is normal? How do I know I created systems? How do I know that I've created systems in my life that are absolutely not of God? Easy. Ready? This is the next thing. This is how you do it. If you accept anything less than what God has for you, then you've created a system that is not part of His kingdom's reality. I have an illness that's supposed to take my life. That is not what God has for you. Don't put a system around it to say that it's okay, this is normal. Look, cancer happens in the world today, so we just accept it as truth. No, you go against it. I don't care how loud you scream. I don't care how loud you do things. Oh, what did I say? Scream? Son of David! Have mercy on me! Shut up! You're embarrassing. Son of David! Have mercy on me! And it makes God stand still. Are you with me on this one? We have got to get to a place where this is our normal. God's kingdom, God's reality is our normal. God's system is what He has. I will give you a story because I love stories, okay? This could be my story, but we'll go there. Have you ever seen one of these? That is a 1978 Ford Fairmont. Dolphin blue. White top. Amazing. Amazing. I wasn't born in 1978. I got this bad boy in 1997. This bad boy was absolutely amazing. 8-track tapes, right? AM only stereo, okay? This thing was awesome. You didn't need a key to start it. It just turned and you just went. The windows didn't roll up and down, and they never went all the way up. They kind of half, right? This thing didn't have shocks. Every time you hit a bump, sparks right next to the gas tank. Great design, okay? And last but not least is the beauty of this car. It sometimes had power steering. Rainy days was amazing. I did a 360 on turning on to 19th Street from Carnelian. It was like, no! Oh, dang. Click. Whee! Had a friend in the car. I was driving her home. She's just screeching. Hit the top of the roof. Just, bam, hit the roof. And it has that liner in there that was supposed to have padding. That padding popped, and it was dust everywhere. So all you saw is the car spinning out, and then orange stuff shooting out the windows that were rolled down. This was a beautiful car. Beautiful. Do you know what I did? I knew it was a inter-syllables there. I knew it wasn't a good car. But it was a car. It got me from point A to point B, right? So I did everything I could. I put some really fun things in there, got some lights up in that thing, some dingleberries that are kind of hanging from the ceiling, right? Dude, this thing, I made it awesome because, and I told my friends, dude, they're like, oh my gosh, that's a hoopty. And I'm like, whatever, I was like, this car is bomb. Like, what did I do? I give you this story, we're laughing, but what did I do? I created a system. I knew it wasn't good, but it was what I had. So I created a system. Does that make sense? And I tried to get everybody else to come into my system and say it's okay. And guess what? My friends came over all the time. I drove everywhere. You know what the problem is? When you create a system of something that doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, you literally take your life in your own hands. That thing was a death trap. Let's just be real. All right? And what did I do? I made it a system, and I brought other people into my death trap. Is this not the world? I know it's a stupid story of my very first car. It was my grandpa's car, and I'm thankful that I had it. But it didn't last very long. Because let's just be real, I'm killing people. This was not good. I thank God that it broke down. Here's the thought process. Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the side of the road. He created a system. He didn't stand next to the side of the road, he sat on the side of the road. Because when you create a system, you sit down in it and you relax. At least if Bartimaeus was standing up, he could have left. Some of us, we are sitting in the systems that we've created, and we're just saying, this is life. And you've given up trying. Are you with me on this one? The next thing is this. It says every time we adapt to the systems in this world, it puts us in a place of death, and we treat it as if it's normal. Did you know that you were never created to die? Human beings were never created to die. But yet we accept death as normal. Why? Because that is an earthly mindset, not a kingdom mindset. Some of you in this place today are sitting here waiting to die to hang out with Jesus, when Jesus died already to hang out with you. Are you guys with me? I want us to understand these concepts, because if we keep living in the earthly reality, we will never meet him. So I think it's time that we kind of get out of the familiar. I think it's time that we start to look at the systems and stuff that we have put into place. I think it's time that we need to start shouting something different. Why? Because I believe Jesus is passing by. And we need to be ready for him. This was the last thing I would and then we'll wrap it up. Jesus said to him, Bartimaeus, and Jesus said to Bartimaeus to him, what do you want me to do for you? It's kind of a stupid question, don't you think? The blind man, screaming son of David. By the way, just side note, in case you guys cared, and then we'll get the band on stage. Did you know the only people that actually yelled out son of David were blind people? Throughout all the, except for one. There's only one. You know what that one was? It was a Canaanite woman. And the Canaanite woman means that she was a Gentile, she was not Jewish, but she called him son of David, recognizing who he was. Do you guys not catch the whole concept of why he heals the people that yell out son of David? Because even though they might be able to see, they're still blind because nobody else is calling him son of David. Because to call somebody son of David would mean to recognize that he's the Messiah. The blind people could actually see it, but the people that could see were actually really blind. Anyways, side note. What do you want me to do for you? And the blind man said to him, Rabbi, let me recover my sight. Let me share this word with you because I think it's absolutely incredible. Bartimaeus might have not have been blind his entire life. It says, let me recover my sight. It doesn't say, let me see. Every time somebody in the scriptures was blind from birth, they would A, share it, but B, they would actually say something. Like they would actually say, like, I want to see for the first time, or I want to do this. This word right here actually means to recover, which means that he might have had it and then lost it, my sight. And Jesus said to him, go your way. Your faith has made you well. What the? Time out. You mean I didn't need you? Uh-oh. What do you mean my faith? You touch me right now. You grab some mud, because I've heard you've done that before. You spit on the ground, you just rub it in my eyes. What do you mean I'm healed? Doesn't touch him. You're healed. Your faith has healed you. Do you see what happens when we create systems and we try to see what's normal? We don't realize that we already have our healing, but we choose to stay blind. Some of you, you're living in a spot that you don't need to live in anymore because you have the ability, your faith and God and who God is, and understanding that you're not living in a worldly reality anymore. We're going to live in a kingdom reality. You look at that and you can start saying, my healing, my position, my success has already come. I'm going to start living in it. Did that make sense? The reality is you just have to make sure that you understand that whatever you're going after right now is part of His plan and not yours. Because if you're sitting down saying, I want my own thing, I want all these things, and you're being selfish, basically is what the word would be. If you're sitting there asking for things for yourself and not what the kingdom needs, are you guys with me on this one? Then you're right, you're not going to be blind for a little bit longer. Until you understand it's a kingdom reality we need to set into. Are you with me on this one? Yeah? What do you mean I'm already healed? Your faith has healed you. And what is the first thing that he does? Immediately he recovers it. Oh, go back one more. Immediately he recovered his sight and he followed Jesus where? To the cross. That's where he was going. He was going to die. And that's where he followed him to. Did you follow that? That's a good word right there. What are you following? Will you follow him unto death? Ooh, last thought. Ben, come on stage. Bartimaeus always had his sight. He just needed to be in the right environment that allowed him to get rid of the systems he created and live in God's kingdom / reality. So what did we learn today? Why am I explaining this entire story to you guys? What is the whole point? Why am I sharing this right before Easter? Is because of this. If we're going to see God on the cross, we need to understand why he truly did it. Which means we can't be blind when we start coming up into this reality. We have to truly see and understand why he was doing what he was doing. The disciples didn't even understand it. For you guys, we are past it. We're in the future from this history. Does this make sense? And we need to start recognizing what God has done for us. Start looking at your systems. Start looking at where you're planting yourself. What environment are you in to grow to where you need to be? I'm going to have to say this because I have to preface it like this, but this is how it works. That doesn't mean you leave churches. I'm not growing in this environment. I'm leaving. That's not how it works. Listen, I want to be real with all of you, because we have this idea and this scenario in our head that we just become church hoppers, and we just hop from church to church trying to fill a need inside of me. Let me just be real with you. You're not looking for an environment. God is always present. I've been to a lot of churches. I have sat in a lot of church buildings. I have heard probably thousands of sermons, okay? If not tens of thousands. There's a lot of hours I put into there, okay? Listen. God is there because He's with you. The environment is what you choose to make it. He sat on a mat, alms, alms, alms. His environment didn't change because Jesus walked in, and he recognized that Jesus walked in. Jesus changed the environment. And he, Bartimaeus, recognized the environment shift, and he started screaming, I have to do something abnormal because I need Jesus to recognize me. Are you guys with me on this one? What does that mean? That means every church you walk into, Jesus is walking by. I really hope so. I don't know what they're praying, but if He's walking by, it's your job now to shift that environment. It's your job to use the gifts and the talents that you have to start shifting the environment, and not just getting people to join you in that, but to really say, God, what are you doing? And as you start running, as you start growing, as you start producing fruit, people will join in. Why? Because they see God in you. You bring the environment. Are you guys following me on this one? I'm not sitting here saying like, well, I got to go to Ohio now because that's a better environment. No, the environment is for you. Now, I'll just say this. If you guys want a story, it's Peter on the boat with Jesus. Have you caught any fish today? No, I haven't caught any fish today. Awesome. Throw your net on the other side of the boat. If you guys are like fighting something, it might not be that you need to leave the boat. It might just mean that you need to look on the other side. Did that make sense? Look, it's all about the environment. It's all about growing. It's all about choosing God and living in His kingdom reality, not our earthly reality. Bartimaeus is a great example of all of this. Because as Jesus walks to the cross, I believe He stops and He talks to Bartimaeus because He wants to get people to understand. Stop being blind. See what's really about to happen. Amen? Did I beat this to death? Is this, you guys got this, right? All right. So, Father, God, you are so good. I thank you so much, Father, for the love that you have for us. And now, God, we want to worship you. I believe you deserve to be worshiped. We love you, Father. So as we sing songs of praise to you, Lord, God, would you come and would you change the environment in this room? Would you shift our hearts and our minds as we follow you, Father God? And God, I am so excited to see what you're going to do just with our little community as we start to produce fruit and we start to become, as we start to see once again.